The U.S. vice presidential candidates face off in a hotly contested debate. Peace remains shaky between police and migrants in the northern French port town of Calais. And one of the world's hottest fashion trends emphasizes the modest. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Well, in the fight for the White House, the two U.S. vice presidential contenders, Democrat Tim Kaine and Republican Mike Pence, met in the only debate Tuesday in the state of Virginia. Both men spent most of the time attacking the presidential candidates of the other party, Democrat Hillary Clinton and Republican Donald Trump. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone has the details.
It was a rare moment in the spotlight for the two vice presidential contenders, Democrat and Virginia Senator Tim Kaine and his Republican opponent, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. After a friendly handshake, the debate quickly turned contentious as Kaine urged Pence to defend a series of controversial remarks made by Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump.
Donald Trump during his campaign has called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He's called women slobs, pigs, dogs, disgusting.
That brought a strong response from Pence.
He still wouldn't have a fraction of the insults that Hillary Clinton leveled when she said that half of our supporters were a basket of deplorables. She said they were irredeemable.
Throughout the debate, the two men frequently interrupted one another, but for the most part, they also kept their cool. Pence and Kaine clashed over foreign policy, with Pence alleging that the U.S. has grown weaker under the leadership of President Barack Obama.
After traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, after being the architect of the foreign policy of this administration, America is less safe today.
For his part, Kaine took aim at some of Trump's foreign policy proposals, including on nuclear policy.
Donald Trump believes that the world will be safer if more nations have nuclear weapons. He said Saudi Arabia should get them, Japan should get them, Korea should get them.
Kaine also pointed to Trump's refusal to release his tax returns and recent revelations about the Republicans' business losses in the 1990s.
Governor Pence had to give Donald Trump his tax returns to show he was qualified to be vice president. Donald Trump must give the American public his tax returns to show that he's qualified to be president.
Pence tried to turn the tax issue to Trump's advantage.
Donald Trump is a businessman, not a career politician. He actually built a business. Those tax returns that came out publicly this week showed that he faced some pretty tough times 20 years ago.
The two men fought over terrorism, immigration, relations with Russia, and the economy. Historically, vice presidential debates have had little impact on the outcome of presidential elections, and the second Clinton-Trump debate comes in only 5 days.
Well, and joining us now with more insight on last night's debate is our political expert, VOA national correspondent Jim Malone. Jim, welcome back again to Africa 54. Now, at the very beginning, of course, the gentlemen were asked what in them makes them ready to be president in case anything happens. Now, other than that, everything else was about talking about the presidential candidates.
Yes.
What's the value of this debate?
Well, I think some people are questioning it now. This one in particular, I think, since there's so much focus on Clinton and Trump, this is going to be quickly forgotten. There were no major mistakes by either of these candidates, Pence and Kaine. Pence may have helped Trump a little bit by at least getting the subject back on issues Republicans like to talk about, some of Clinton's faults and some of their conservative beliefs. But Kaine pressed the attack and really kept the debate focused on Donald Trump. And as long as this election is on Trump and his various controversies, that's probably an advantage for Clinton.
Now, in terms of that look, the readiness to be president, is that important to voters? Like, how ready would a person be and how presidential does he look if there is a need for him to step up to the plate?
I think it's important when it's clear someone's not ready. For example, in 2008, Alaska Governor Sarah Palin had a high bar to meet in order to seem qualified. She did fairly well in her one and only debate with Joe Biden. This time, though, I think the focus is so much on the two presidential nominees, Clinton and Trump, that people are really actually gearing up for that second debate. They're already looking ahead to see what kind of surprises might be in store, especially on the Trump side.
Now, from what you're hearing and your personal analysis, how would you compare how effectively this man made the case for the presidential contenders and how the presidential contenders themselves made the case for themselves in the first debate?
Well, I think most of the polls and a lot of the analysts think Clinton was a clear winner in the first debate. That's going to put enormous pressure now on Donald Trump to step up in the second debate. The format's a little different. Half the questions will come from voters in a town hall format. That makes it a little more uncertain, unpredictable. We're told, or we hear, that Trump will be on the attack again on Hillary Clinton, may make some of those attacks more personal. So the question is, how will Clinton respond? But also, might Donald Trump go too far? He certainly has in the past. So there's a lot of moving parts, I think, to the debate coming up.
Did it look to you like perhaps Mike Pence had little difficulties defending some of Trump's position?
Well, I think that's one of the takeaways. Kaine pressed the case. Some people thought too aggressively. Yeah. That was a demerit on him. But he kept the focus on Donald Trump and a number of controversial remarks, whether about refugees, Mexican immigrants, and so forth. And most of the time, Pence declined to defend him. We're hearing, actually, through some sources in the Trump campaign that the man himself wasn't too happy with that. Sure. So I think to that extent, Kaine did what he had to do. He got the Democrats excited and kept the focus on Trump.
And you know what? He says he's a boring guy. I don't think it was boring. No, I don't think he is.
The debate was much more exciting, I think, than we might have thought.
Jim, thanks a lot for your analysis, as always. Well, that's VOA's national correspondent, Jim Malone. Now, peace remains shaky between police and migrants in the northern French port town of Calais, where the government plans to tear down a giant migrant camp by year's end and build a wall to keep migrants from stowing away on ferries or trucks to Britain. But as Lisa Bryant reports from Calais, critics doubt the measures will curb a problem that mirrors Europe's larger migrant crisis.
Up to 10,000 people live in this makeshift camp known as the jungle. Most have fled poverty and hunger at home. Soon, they may be on the move again. Authorities want to resettle jungle residents to different parts of France. Those who do not qualify for asylum will be deported. At the same time, Britain is financing the construction of a concrete wall near the camp and surrounding the main road to the Calais port. The purpose? To stop sometimes deadly efforts to hitch rides to what these migrants believe is the promised land, Britain, just across the English Channel. Calais residents hope that raising the jungle camp will help turn around the city's ailing economy.
Le business est difficile aujourd'hui dû à l'image.
Business is difficult today because of Calais' image as a slum, even though we don't have a problem with the migrants downtown. The numbers of Britons crossing the channel to shop here has dropped tenfold.
A diminué par 10.
But many, like Van Gansbeck, fear the migrants will just keep coming to Calais after the camp is raised. And they believe that building a new wall will further damage the image of a town that is already ringed by fencing. Across France, migration has become a flashpoint before next spring's presidential vote. Polls show far-right National Front leader Marine Le Pen winning the first round, although not the second.
Il est bien évidemment important de changer de politique.
It is obvious that we need to change our migration policy, and the National Front is the only alternative to the globalized system.
The jungle's residents and its many volunteers are against dismantling the camp. Aid groups say it will worsen the humanitarian situation.
They say they're going to destroy everything. But you know, politician is politician. They decide what they want to do. We don't have power to fight them.
So for many migrants and Calais residents, raising the jungle will not solve a much larger migration problem. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Calais, France.
Well, in East Africa, security remains elusive in South Sudan. A group of rebels said Tuesday they had clashed with government forces in the state of Central Equatoria, raising concern that it's more evidence that the 5-year-old nation is sliding back into conflict after a peace agreement fell apart. Now, the government denies the reports of fighting, but a commander in the SPLA in opposition, Major Dixon Gatluok, says the clashes took place around the towns of Yei, Marobo, and Kaya. Well, he said rebels had pulled out from some of those areas. Now, the UN says it is concerned for the safety of 100,000 people trapped in and around Yei, which lies about 150 kilometers southwest of Juba. Now, for more on the situation in South Sudan, I'm joined by Ambassador Gordon Boy. He's the head of Consular and Diaspora Affairs at the South Sudan Embassy here in Washington. Ambassador, welcome back to Africa 54. Now, you know, the situation in South Sudan is raising a lot of concern to everybody. Now, this report we just had shows that there's fighting going on. So what is the situation around the country?
Yes, there is fighting going on, but it's not like before. It's not like in 2014, 2015. The changes, I would say that fighting is going to die down because now we have a new team. Gerald Tabande and President Kiir are working very well, and the implementation of the peace is going very well. We have parliament, so a lot of stumbling blocks which could not be done during the Riek Machar time are now being solved. So we believe that this small skirmishes going on in Equatoria will be addressed.
You know, the other side, the Machar group says, first, it has declared war on Salva Kiir's government, and it claims that the Salva Kiir government is actually killing civilians. It has violated the peace deal. So how will that, lead to peace?
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate the U.S. government for condemning Dr. Riek for calling for violence. And it's not only the U.S., even the region, the Kenya, and then Ethiopia, and then Sudan, also advised Dr. Riek that fighting is not the solution. And they are now, I'm told 2 days ago, the Sudan government asked him to leave Sudan to go to South Africa. So now the region is against peace, is for peace. They are against violence. And the international community, including the U.S., said the same thing. The U.S. State Department made it very clear. So we believe that peace is going to be realized, because if the regional powers or our neighbors are themselves pushing for peace, and Sudan will stop harboring negative forces, I don't think the issue of Riek Machar and his faction would be a problem.
Yeah, but look, you're talking about the U.S. condemning the opposition there, but just recently in New York, Samantha Power met with the Vice President of South Sudan, the current one, and she said that the U.S. is willing to cooperate with South Sudan if South Sudan government of Machar or Riek, Salva Kiir, is working enough to remove any obstructions, first to delivering aid to people of South Sudan. There have been a lot of obstacles from the international community. There have been killings committed by government forces in South Sudan, and nothing has happened to those soldiers. So to what extent can you say that the Salva Kiir government is actually contributing to peace?
The issue of Train Hotel, which is true, there were American aid workers and journalists who were targeted by our rogue soldiers. We set up a committee, and the report will come out within 1 week, and then a special tribunal will be set up with a special prosecutor, and we even invite the FBI expertise on forensic to help that tribunal, so that we are going to prosecute those criminals. This issue is being addressed.
Although they say that it's taken too long, and it looks it's not being speeded up.
No, the investigation was done. It will be tabled this week, and then the president will issue a decree forming a special tribunal. And then within that special tribunal, it would be like any special tribunal in the world. And we even asked the FBI support, so that it has to be transparent, so that the American will believe us, and which it is good on that. On the issue of humanitarian, the problem was that it was a problem of paperwork communication between our security organs and then the immigration. So now we came up with a new formula. All these groups, the immigration, the security organs, the military intelligence, they will be in one room to address this problem of NGOs not getting access very fast.
Now, some have said clearly you cannot ignore Riek Machar, that he has to be involved, he has to be in the equation if you hope at all to achieve peace in South Sudan. No, can you ignore it?
No, Riek Machar cannot be part of the equation. I think you remember what Donald Booth said on September the 7th, because Riek cannot work together with President Kiir. That's why his bodyguard clashed with the president bodyguard on July 9. So now the only option for Riek is for him to stay away so that the interim period will be addressed by General Taban Dengaj and President Kiir taking the country forward.
They claim, and of course others, especially refugees who have crossed over to Uganda, say there has been a clear targeting of civilians by South Sudanese army.
No, we have
there are
no
killings
reports
on the border. There are people who are crossing over. They're saying that.
Well, I think maybe it was during the fighting from July the 8th to the 11th, but there are no more killings. I believe even if such things are happening, the NGOs, the human rights organization would report it, but we never got any report in regard to that.
Yeah, but you know, people out there know the truth, and they will, of course, respond to this. If you're telling the truth, of course, they will concur with you. Yes. But, of course, we'll call you back again if we need to get some more information.
No, there's no problem. Yeah,
Ambassador Boy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, now that's Ambassador Gordon Boy is the Chief of Consular and Diaspora Affairs at the South Sudanese Embassy here in Washington. Well, the United Nations Security Council, which backs the widely recognized Yemeni government of President Abdirabbu Mansour Hadi, is strongly condemning an attack on a naval vessel of a Hadi ally trying to reserve the Sunni leader's presidency. Now, the Council's rebuke of Houthi rebels comes just days after rebels struck a ship belonging to the United Arab Emirates in a narrow strait linking the Red Sea to the Gulf of Aden. No casualties were reported in last Saturday's incident. Meanwhile, top UN humanitarian officials are calling on the international community to more fully recognize the humanitarian disaster gripping Yemen, calling the fallout from civil war there one of the worst crises in the world.
In addition to malnutrition, where, as I say, we have 7 million people in very, very severe and acute malnutrition. I met babies in the pediatric and in the feeding wards of the hospital. It was absolutely terrifying, as any of us who are parents would find a child. One was said to be 7 years old. I'm not even sure that might have been the case. It might have even been 7 months. Either way, the child was so thin, so malnourished, and the mother too. It was absolutely appalling to see, and these things are avoidable.
Well, O'Brien says the UN has been boosting its support and protection of the Yemeni people since 2015, but efforts to do more are being hampered by a lack of funds. The World Food Programme says it urgently needs $145 million to carry out its life-saving operations until the end of the year. Well, Portugal's former Prime Minister, Antonio Guterres, has unofficially been selected as the UN's next General Secretary. Now, a decisive round of voting took place Wednesday in the UN Security Council, and the veteran politician and diplomat prevailed with 13 votes in favor of his candidacy, none objecting to it, and 2 votes of no opinion. On Thursday, the Council will formalize their decision in a vote, and after that, put their decision in a resolution. They will then send their recommendation to the UN General Assembly, which is expected to rubber stamp Guterres' selection. Guterres, 67, was Portugal's prime minister from 1992 to 2002. He led the UN Refugee Agency for a decade, from 2005 to 2015. Guterres told VOA in an interview during his campaign that he was running for the top UN job because he wants to create the conditions for solutions to global challenges. Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, we'll have a live business report from Africa 54's Jill Malandrino in New York. Stay with us.
I am Sheikh Sali, host and senior editor of VOA's international call-in talk show, Straight Talk Africa.
Today we'll examine the tobacco industry.
We pretty much touch on anything that you can think of. Politics, health issues, human rights issues, you name it, we talk about it. The issues that we discuss are pertinent to most people on the African continent. A very, very rare and unique opportunity to interact with their leaders.
I'm Milar Sega. I'm the host of VOA's The Correspondents, a roundup of the world's top stories with analysis from our dedicated reporters. It's really a conversation the same way that you would bring a friend to your home and ask them what's going on. And our correspondents will do that and answer those questions through their own eyes.
That appears a false choice in more ways than one.
We can't actually put you there, but we can come pretty close. In 30 minutes, we'll show you the world.
Welcome back in Wednesday's Business Report. While British-based bank Barclays is looking to sell its African stake, Standard Bank is trying to position itself as the go-to brand for commercial banking in West Africa. For more on why Standard is banking on the region, let's go to Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino straight from New York. Hi, Jill.
Hey, good afternoon. So here's a direct quote. You can't talk about being involved in Africa and not have a plan for West Africa. This was said by Andrew Robertson. He's the head of business banking for Standard Bank Africa at the group's Intra-Africa Business Conference in Ghana just yesterday. It was the second meeting of its kind in 2016. The conference focuses on the challenges and opportunities of doing business in the region, made up of 16 countries. Presentations were made from business and government leaders, and according to Robertson, the conference was oversubscribed. Clients from Southern Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Angola, Ghana, Nigeria, and China attended. By the way, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China holds a 20% stake in Standard Bank, which it bought in 2008 for $5.5 billion. At the time, it made it the largest investment of a Chinese enterprise into Africa.
Now, look, Jill, many economies in West Africa remain commodity dependent, right? And it seems as if oil prices will remain between $40 to $50 and not return to the levels we saw way back in 2014. So what challenges did they really address?
That's a great point, and one that is always addressed at these types of conferences. The other common theme now is it time to get in on institutional investment in the continent? This is the ground floor to get involved at this point. Yes, challenges in West Africa exist, like inflation, fiscal deficits, rising exchange rates and depreciation, as well as volatilities and uncertainties as a result of rising public debts. But this is why Standard Bank is stepping in now. Ghana and Nigeria have already made the tough decisions, and Standard believes next year will be a good year for stability and growth, which is ultimately positive for businesses.
Now, where are business leaders seeing, any kind of signs of improvement?
Well, West Africa has done well with technology penetration, especially mobile and financial technology. There's a reason why Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg met with developers and local businesses in Lagos, Yaba, which is the Silicon Valley of Nigeria, and Nairobi. Other drivers of growth also include agriculture and agro-processing, infrastructural development to support the rising growth, as well as oil and gas and mineral resources in general. The key is implementing stronger fiscal policies, transparency, and improved governance to keep the foreign direct investment flows coming in.
Excellent, as always, Jill. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reporting from New York. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Now, the big business of modest fashion. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. In Ethiopia, opposition leader Merera Gudina calls on the government to hold an independent inquiry into the deaths of people in the stampede at a religious festival on Sunday. In Somalia, authorities lift a ban on imports from Kenya of a leafy plant chewed as a stimulant that is highly addictive. In the DRC, President Joseph Kabila says the country's elections will be delayed, prompting accusations that he's trying to extend his presidency. We go back to Ethiopia, where a new historic 650-kilometer railway begins operations linking the capital Addis Ababa to the port of Djibouti. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
You're with Africa 54. Welcome back. I'm Haiti Adams-Fitzpatrick. Here's a look at what's trending. We're taking you inside the booming Muslim fashion industry. It's a new age in modest wear, and retailers are paying attention. Last year, spending on modest Islamic fashion topped $243 billion, according to the State of the Global Islamic Economy report. Muslim consumer spending accounted for 11% of the world's total expenditure on clothing and apparel. The entire Islamic economy is predicted to reach a whopping $3 trillion by 2021. International design houses are already clamoring to cater to the growing demand, with Louis Vuitton, Gucci and H&M all unveiling collections targeting the Muslim luxury fashion market. Let's face it, beards can be controversial, a topic, but for some, facial hair is highly fashionable. Bleached and dyed, styled and blow-dried, beards of all shapes and sizes are vying for attention these days. You may have noticed that beards have made a bristling comeback in recent years, and that means barbers are back too. Just when you thought the profession was fading away, the barber business seems to be experiencing somewhat of a rebirth. Thanks to social media, young men are rediscovering barbershops. One facial hair trend spotter says the beard revival isn't just about fashion, it's also about the idea of manliness, which we've seen throughout history. I'll reserve comment on that. And finally, we've seen major manufacturers putting money, effort and know-how into self-driving automotive technology. What does this mean for our relationship with cars? A vehicle without a driver could dramatically change the way cars work and look in future. For instance, are you going to want to pay extra for high-speed performance cars when you won't even need to put your foot on the gas pedal? Would you bother going out to buy a car when you can simply order a self-driving one to pick you up at your front door? Well, companies are also investing heavily in the in-car connectivity experience. That means we could see things like parking spaces coordinated in the cloud. Smart parking. And that is what is trending today. Vincent, back to you.
80. Actually, I don't really care about driving, so I'll be happy to get back out of a car. Well, that's our show for today. Now, be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. Now, for more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight. That's at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good night.
I'm Michelle Joseph for Anglais Télé. This is VOA. Follow us at La Voix de l'Amérique. Go to lavoixdelamerique.com.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A lot of idioms in American English come from sports. Here's one that comes from baseball.
Keep your eye on the ball.
Let's learn how to use this expression when not talking about sports.
Hey, Jonathan, how is your Arabic class going?
It's going okay. I'm not studying as much as I should be.
Jonathan, you had better keep your eye on the ball if you want to win that scholarship to study in Egypt. Study harder.
I know. You're right.
To keep your eye on the ball means to keep your attention on something important to you, usually to reach a goal. This idiom can be used in all situations. In our example, Anna tells Jonathan he needs to keep his eye on the ball if he wants to get a scholarship. And that's English in a Minute.